Commander players. This is Jumbo Commander, and it's our very own holiday season. It's Commander 2016 spoilers, and today I have a deck tech with Atraxa, Praetors voice. Let's take a look at this brand new 4-color general. Atraxa, Praetors voice. Green, white, blue, black. For a legendary Angel Horror at 4/4 with Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, and Lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, proliferate. Just a little reminder about what proliferate does. You choose any number of permanents and or players with counters on them, then give each another counter of that kind already there. Let's break down this Angel Horror and find out what great decks we can build with her. The first thing we see with Atraxa is the mana cost. We have never before had the ability to play in these 4 colors alone. So this could just open up a host of opportunities for anyone interested in exploring what decks with this color makeup would look like. Now, that's up to your imagination. We might go there a little bit later. But right now, I want to look at the second thing, which is all these crazy keywords. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. There's a lot of them. Atraxa is certainly a powerful commander, but what I'm going to key in on is, at the beginning of your end step, proliferate. Proliferate is a very powerful mechanic because commander can just go crazy with +1/+1 counters, poison counters, all sorts of things. So I think we could build a really cool +1/+1 counter deck. Simic has done a really good job of these +1/+1 counter synergies before, and I've always kind of wanted to add black and white into the mix. I think you could make a really interesting deck with all 4 colors. But I feel like +1/+1 counters is overdone. Maybe there are other decks that can take advantage of it a little bit better. Well, maybe poison counters. Poison counters are great to proliferate. And I think Atraxa can make a very serviceable general in this area. Poison an opponent and then grind the game out proliferating turn after turn after turn. Now that's going to be more of a control deck that happens to win with poison counters rather than a traditional poison infect deck, which I've seen some very low to the ground versions of. And I don't know if Atraxa outclasses those low to the ground, very powerful poison decks. Where I'm thinking of going with this is Planeswalkers. There's nothing more fun and more cool and over the top than Planeswalkers. And you know what? They're a little bit underpowered in Commander. So being able to have this general that takes them up a notch could make them super interesting. And I think that this has a lot of the colors that we want. Many people run Bant Planeswalkers. They maybe run like a Turbo Fog Planeswalkers. So I think adding the black in there is going to make this a perfect Planeswalker deck. I do want to point out that you could build a pretty good stacks deck with this commander. Things like Tangle Wire and Parallax Wave and Smokestack and just a control deck that just sort of grinds out with these counters that you can proliferate over and over again. Maybe Stack's poison counter deck could be somewhere that we go in the future. I mean, you could always put Planeswalkers in that deck and it would be great. So what I want to get across is that Atraxa has tons of possibilities in terms of building, but I think we're going to focus on some Planeswalkers. Let's go Super Friends. We got a few great cards when it comes to Super Friends decks in Oath of Gideon and Oath of Nissa. Oath of Gideon gives us a little bit of protection with those 2/1/1 allies, and lets your Planeswalkers start a little bit higher, which gets them ever closer to those tantalizing ultimates. Oath of Nissa might be one of the most important cards that you can draw because we're dealing with 4-color mana bases, guys. They're pretty tough to build and they're kind of expensive if you want them to act flawlessly. So being able to spend mana as though it were any color to cast Planeswalker spells is going to be great. These are auto includes. But you You could also consider including Oath of Jace. Scrying can be really valuable, especially 3 Planeswalkers, scry 3 every turn. That's pretty close to drawing a card. And then Oath of Liliana. Sacrificing a creature in Commander, it's not that great. Getting a zombie? Oh, okay, that's fine. I might leave him out. Okay, guys, this is going to be a barrage of Planeswalkers. They're going to come at you. Well, they're just going to come up on the screen. But there's going to be a lot of them, and I'm only going to point out the abilities that I think are important. Teferi, card advantage, untapping stuff ramps you. The ultimate is insane, and that's what I'm going to go for in this deck. I want the ultimate. Garruk is basically a ramp Planeswalker. All the Jaces are great because they give you card advantage, and Jace Architect of Thought can actually kind of blank the board a little bit. Good pseudo-fog. Karn Liberated exiles something. Garruk Apex Predator kills something, either Planeswalker or something else. Beasts are good for protection. And Vraska kills something. By the way, putting assassins onto the battlefield is great. I want to win like that. Freyly is Llanowar's enemy. She can destroy an artifact or an enchantment, and she also can protect herself with a rampy dude. Plus, she's got an eye patch, so she's like a forest pirate. Gideon Jura kills something tapped, but pluses to get everyone to attack him and not your other Planeswalkers. Good job defending the Planeswalkers, Gideon. Ugin the Spirit Dragon. -X to exile things that are colored less than X. You do have colored Planeswalkers, but that might be okay. Especially because most of our Planeswalkers are like 4, 5, 6 drops, so Ugin can take out all the little things on the battlefield. Excellent. Plus, that -10. Oh, that -10. Gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanent cards from your hand on the battlefield. That is what I want to achieve. Elspeth Sun's Champion. The +1 is great for defending Planeswalkers, 3 chump blockers, but also destroying all the big creatures on the battlefield is a Wrath on a Planeswalker, exactly what I want. Narset Transcendent is very important because you can plus it to find another Planeswalker, but more importantly, minusing can let you rebound something like a Wrath spell, wrathing the board 2 turns in a row, keeping the board clear for your Planeswalkers to tick up and up. Sorin Grim Nemesis can give you some card advantage while also taking out a pesky creature. Ajani Steadfast. A little underwhelming because we're not going to run a lot of creatures for him to interact with. But the -2 might be worth it alone. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Fine, we might have incidental creatures. +1/+1 counters allow us to proliferate. I like that. And a loyalty counter on each Planeswalker you control. I would play a sorcery for 4 mana that just says add a loyalty counter to each Planeswalker. So Ajani Steadfast is going to be great. Liliana Vess is here for her -2 ability, where you can search your library for a card and put that card on top of it. I mean, it's not that efficient of a tutor. If you really wanted a tutor, you could do Call of the Gatewatch or Demonic Tutor, but I think I want my tutor on a Planeswalker, so I think I'm going to run Liliana Vess. Tezzeret the Seeker. Now, we have not named very many artifacts, and Tezzeret basically tutors an artifact onto the battlefield. What artifact do you think we could tutor? Rings of Brighthearth for doubling our Planeswalker activations, Torpor Orb for shutting down other strategies, maybe Navinral's Disc for killing everything but Planeswalkers, or the Chain Veil. Oh, the Chain Veil for making your Planeswalkers go crazy. To be honest, don't be afraid to throw whatever Planeswalker you happen to really like in this deck. I think it can support a lot of different Planeswalkers. Now let's talk about the cards that make those Planeswalkers excellent. Deploy the Gatewatch. You definitely need to have a high Planeswalker count for this to be effective, but when it is, it's great slamming 2 Planeswalkers onto the battlefield during a turn. If you find that you're whiffing ever with this, you're ever getting only 1 Planeswalker, you should probably take it out of your deck. Next, we have one of the most powerful enablers for Planeswalkers, Doubling Season. This 5-mana enchantment doubles the counters that come on Planeswalkers when they enter the battlefield. Not to mention, by the way, doubling the tokens that Planeswalkers produce. I mean, that's just like gravy. But Doubling Season can be so powerful because it allows your Planeswalkers to get off that critical ultimate sometimes the turn that they come into play. I'd be very careful when to play Doubling Season. Oftentimes you want to play Doubling Season, then immediately play a Planeswalker right afterwards. So this is pretty much a late drop, like 9-10 mana available. You drop Doubling Season, then immediately drop a Planeswalker after it. Speaking of reaching ultimates on your Planeswalkers, Gilder Baron is adorable. Look at him. It's like a little kid in a frog costume. He's going like trick-or-treating or something. But do not let this little Ophi fool you, okay? It is very, very dangerous because for 2 a Simic and an untap, you can double the counters on a permanent. That means that with this guy, you just kind of instantly ultimate one of your Planeswalkers. And that's amazing. The ultimates on these Planeswalkers are game-winning. So getting one of these cards can be really critical. We could run tutors, but I prefer something like Wargate because it looks cool and it's a cool card. Search your library for a permanent card with converted mana cost X or less and put it into play, then shuffle your library. It's very critical. You know the mana costs of the cards you need in your deck, but the ability to get a permanent just straight onto the battlefield is very fun. Guys, I had recorded this video as soon as the new Planeswalker came out, and I had everything done and everything was loaded until I saw this next card, and I had to go back. I had to add it because Deep Glow Skate is so good. 4 and a blue for a 3/3 fish. Not only do I love the art because I love giant sea creatures, but when Deep Glow Skate enters the battlefield, double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. Oh, every single Planeswalker doubles? You can play this every single Planeswalker doubles, and then you just ultimate every Planeswalker you have on the battlefield? Every creature that has a +1/+1 counter on it, everything that has anything on it, just doubles? Doubles. Oh, you gigantic, beautiful manta ray, you. I can't believe that Wizards printed this kind of card. It's got a crazy enter the battlefield ability, which we know can be abused. This could be in Animar, this could be in Brago, this could be in so many decks. This is gonna cause some chaos. I'm kind of afraid of this fish, but until it causes too much trouble, I'm gonna be one of the people trying to break it by ultimating tons and tons of Planeswalkers. So get those emblems out, guys. Deep Glow Skate's gonna get you there. Time Warp, Temporal Manipulation, and actually any take an extra turn spell is very good in a Planeswalker strategy. The reason why is Planeswalkers gain their advantage over multiple turns. I think very few people would play Planeswalkers if they were just sorceries for one of their activations. They just went away. But in Commander, that kind of happens because Planeswalkers have the tendency to die horrible deaths as they get attacked as soon as you play them and pass the turn. So sometimes that's what the Planeswalkers do. It's, Jace the Mind Sculptor is a 4-mana Brainstorm. Garrick could be a 4-mana 3/3 Beast. They're not great. But with these take an extra turn spells, you can activate multiple Planeswalkers over the course of several turns, getting enough value and enough advantage to maybe stabilize your board. So these take an extra turn spells can be very good, but don't go overboard with them. They can make the game not fun, and also they don't gain you as much advantage if you don't have a board state. So it's all about balance when it comes to these. I think I'm going to choose a very interesting take an extra turn spell called Savor the Moment. 1 blue, take an extra turn after this one, skip the untap step of that turn. Now normally this would be awful. Part of taking an extra turn is being able to deploy more and more creatures, permanents, whatever, using your mana. But Savor the Moment lets you basically take an extra turn just for your planeswalkers. And I like that. I don't think it's overly powerful like a lot of these other take an extra turn spells. I think that Savor the Moment is interesting and corner case and can be very powerful at the exact right time. Now it kind of feels like this category isn't enablers. It's like all of the broken cards that go with Planeswalkers section. And it's not going to stop because we're going to talk about the Chain Veil. It's 4 and tap to give every single Planeswalker another activation, doubling up activations, and doubling up the threat of going ultimate on all of those Planeswalkers. I also really like the cool art that's in the back of this. It's very neat. And then along with doubling up activations, Rings of Brighthearth can double up an activated ability on a Planeswalker for just 2 mana. Also worth mentioning, if you are playing fetch lands, and we probably should, because this is a 4-color deck and our mana is probably going to be very stretched, every fetch land can be fetch, pay 2, fetch 2 lands. So that can be very powerful. Now we already have a commander that proliferates, but why don't we just take proliferation one step further with Viral Drake? 3 blue lets you proliferate. And you could do that over and over and over again. Imagine if you have 12 mana. My gosh, the proliferation. You can go heavy proliferate. There's Contagion Clasps and a lot of other proliferate cards that you can kind of throw in here. But I think I want to keep it pretty close to the Super Friends and also protecting those Planeswalkers. One other card that goes deep on proliferate is Inexorable Tide. I think I'm going to leave out a lot of the proliferate stuff and let my commander really do the heavy lifting when it comes to that. I think I want to instead focus on protecting the Planeswalkers that I can get onto the battlefield. Protection. Peacekeeper. Creatures can't attack. Yes. Silent Arbiter. No more than 1 creature can attack each combat. No more than 1 creature can block each combat. If only 1 creature is attacking, then only 1 Planeswalker is getting attacked. I am in for that. Effects like Ghostly Prison and Propaganda aren't going to cut it because, well, they're not going to be attacking you. They're going to be attacking your Planeswalker, which is why Norn's Annex can work very well, where an opponent has to pay Phyrexian white to attack you or a Planeswalker you control. Maze of Ith, Core Haven, and Mystifying Maze are all lands that can help protect your Planeswalkers. Maze of Ith is the simplest, needing no mana to activate, but it also doesn't tap for mana. Core Haven and Mystifying Maze both tap for colorless, but don't fool yourself. The mana requirements of this deck are pretty intense, so including these colorless lands is not free. You might want to consider these lands, especially Maze of Ith, as spells in your deck rather than actual land drops. Comeuppance. 3 and a white for an instant. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and Planeswalkers you control this turn by sources you don't control. Or it's a fog. 3 and a white for a fog. 4 mana fog. Ugh. Fog is usually 1 mana. They have Holy Day in white. Sometimes there's 2 mana for that and an ability. This second ability better be good. Damage from a creature source is prevented this way. Comeuppance deals that much damage to that creature. So it's like when the creatures hit you, Comeuppance does that much damage back to the creatures. Now that could wipe a board. Okay. If damage from a non-creature source is prevented this way, Comeuppance deals that much damage to that source's controller. So this also could protect you from burn spells. Okay. More importantly, I don't think Comeuppance is a spectacular card, but I think it's a very interesting card. And fogs in general are not very interesting. They're just kind of like, bloop, nothing happens. But Comeuppance can gain you card advantage, and also it's just way more fun to play with. Consider a card like Aether Spouts as well. Creatures attack you and you're like, nope, on top or the bottom. It just feels great to cast. A few more fogs if you're going to consider. Constant Mists is just great because you can sacrifice a land to buy it back over and over and over again. And just playing it once and having it in your hand can dissuade people from attacking you. Also, Arachnogenesis. I don't know what I copied, but I copied Arachnogenesis Instatiana. I'm bad with languages. I'm gonna say that this is Portuguese. Arachnogenesis puts 1/2 spiders with reach onto the battlefield for every attacking creature. So not only do you prevent damage from non-spider creatures and get to just kill a few things, get a bunch of spiders, but also you get chump blockers for the next turn as well. So Arachnogenesis, Constant Mists are for sure fogs that you should run, and I want to convince you to run cards like Comeuppance and Aether Spouts and more interesting sort of combat-y type cool interactions. Sublime Exhalation is from the new set. This is very cool. It's a board wipe that gets cheaper depending upon how many opponents we have. You get really scared when you see 7 mana, but automatically it's 6 because you at least have one opponent. And then odds are it'll be 5 or 4 or even 3 depending upon how many players are at the table. But it doesn't beat out Supreme Verdict. Supreme Verdict can't be countered. That just beats everything because when you want a board wipe to go off, you need a board wipe to happen. And Supreme Verdict is a little bit hard to cast with the colors, but it's worth running and it's worth making sure that you can cast it. Akroma's Vengeance, Navineral's Disc, and Pernicious Deed all wipe the board of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. These can definitely clean up a board and leave your planeswalkers untouched. Humility. Each creature loses all abilities and is a 1/1 creature. You're not running very many creatures in this deck. You are just running a lot of planeswalkers in defense, and what defends you better than turning everything into a vanilla 1/1? You have tons of defense against little tiny creatures with no abilities, and you can just grind your opponent out with your planeswalker advantages. In fact, a lot of your creatures are vanilla 1/1s anyways. Just think about all those Elspeth tokens that are unaffected by Humility. This card hoses so many decks. Torpor Orb also hoses many decks, and really not yours. Creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Everyone is going crazy with triggering abilities. The Panharmonicon decks are out of control. People are Bragoing everywhere and mirroring back, and the ETBs are out of hand. But Torpor Orb immediately shuts all of that down. And guess what those decks have for artifact removal? Yeah, they have Acidic Slime. They have all of their artifact removal on a creature, so Torpor Orb is going to shut down tons of stuff. That 4-color mana base is going to be pretty rough, guys. Fixing is going to be key, so don't leave out your Solemn Simulacrums, your Chromatic Lanterns, your Coalition Relics, even your Darksteel Ingots, your Fellware Stones. Get everything you can to make sure that your mana is nice and beautiful, because 4-color decks are going to be challenging when it comes to mana. It's also nice with Coalition Relic that Atraxa can also proliferate the charge counter on Coalition Relic, so it will give you 2 mana during your next turn. Oh, little things like that. Little things like that make me super excited to include this card. Guys, just be really careful building your mana base. I mean, just use all of the lands. And yeah, these mana bases are going to be pretty expensive, so just build them with care. And that's been Atraxa, Praetors Voice, the Super Friends edition. I really enjoyed building this deck, and I think it's because of all of the freedom I had. Not just with the mana cost, but with the ability, proliferate. There's so many things with counters on it. We can have a lot of freedom just building with such a powerful, but ultimately an ability that gives us lots of angles, lots of avenues to pursue. So I want to really thank you guys for watching, and I really want to encourage more brewing, because I guarantee that we have not seen the last of Atraxa. This has been Jumbo Commander with an Atraxa deck tech, the first deck tech for Commander 2016. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing with a friend, commenting. Actually, guys, really comment. I would love to hear about all of your sweet ideas for Atraxa. And thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.